Okay. Well, thanks, Kate, and thank you everybody for attending today. I want to thank you for the opportunity. I love talking about the BC Conservation Data Centre and the information and data that we can provide to you and how you can access it. One of my roles is to ensure that clients can access and have the information they need with respect to species and ecosystems in BC. And FYI, we tend to identify ourselves as the CDC, but I realize there's a much more predominant use of that acronym these days. So I will own that we are now the other CDC. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that today I am looking out my window at from my home in beautiful Brentwood Bay on the traditional territory of the Lekwungen and Wasanich peoples. Hang on, there we go. So I'll talk about who we are and what we do at the CDC, our core functions, and then I'll show you what tools we have to access the information. So the CDC in BC is housed in BC Government's Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. We are 12 staff in 4 units: zoology, botany, ecology, and data management. And our client base covers essentially anyone interested in managing for or learning about species and ecological communities in BC. And that includes all levels of government, including First Nations, industry, academia, environmental consultants, and the public. So although the CDC is housed in the BC government, we're somewhat unique in that we're also a member of a nonprofit global organization called NatureServe, as well as NatureServe Canada. And the NatureServe program's mandate is to provide biodiversity science data to support conservation action. And every province and territory, including, of course, Alberta, and I understand there are some attendees from there today, and every state in the US and countries into Latin America all have an equivalent CDC program. They equal over 100 programs. And NatureServe members use a common method for assessing the status of species and ecosystems. So in other words, how well it's doing in that jurisdiction, and for mapping where they occur. And the network provides a lot of benefits, including filtering funds our way, providing expertise, and integrating that data across jurisdictional boundaries so it's comparable and standardized. So what does the CDC do? I'll speak a bit further about each of these, but in a nutshell, our core functions are to compile the list of what species and ecological communities are found in our province, determine the risk of extirpation from BC, which is reflected by an assigned conservation status rank, and map the known locations of those considered to be at risk in BC. And our standard mapping unit is an element occurrence, or EO. And very importantly, and a big focus for us, is to make that data and information available. So the first task is to catalog or list what occurs in the province. And we refer to these biological units as elements, which is a NatureServe term. And the term element allows us to cover species and ecological communities with one word, and to capture the various taxonomic levels that a jurisdiction might track that element at. So it may be referring to a species level, a subspecies, a population, a variety, but it allows us to kind of refer to a single unit of tracked biodiversity. And we currently compile and report out on the lists you see here, and we expand these over time as knowledge and resources allow. So at this point, we tend to add mostly to our invertebrate group or the lichens, bryophytes, and macrofungi. So as information is available, we can add to the elements that we report out on. And we report these lists through the BC Species and Ecosystems Explorer, or BC SEE tool. And we'll have a look at that in a little bit. We currently report over 22,000 elements in BC through that tool. So we then assess elements based on their risk of extirpation from BC. And the NatureServe method is used to assess the elements and to assign a conservation status rank. And this method is purely science-based and considers a number of factors, including rarity, trends, and threats. So if we look at how the conservation status ranks are reflected, each element is assigned a rank reflected on the scale of 1 to 5. The S identifies it as a sub-national rank, in that it's assigned by the province or territory or state. And in this case, of course, BC. You will also see an element with a national N rank or a global G rank as well. So those are assigned by NatureServe Canada and NatureServe. So at one end of the scale is the S1, being most at risk or critically imperiled, down to S5 or secure. And there's full explanations about the rank definitions and the methods of assessment from the CDC site or the NatureServe web pages. And of course, I'm always available to answer those questions. Many BC users are more familiar with our red, blue, and yellow list. And these lists are a reflection or simply a grouping of the S ranks. The red list reflects those elements most at risk, and you can kind of generally see how they translate from the rank to the listing. It's really important to highlight that this is not a regulatory or legal list. These lists are a reflection of science only and not of management priority. They're used to inform management and inform legislation. And we have a real strong belief in this separation between science and policy, and the CDC is strictly science at this point, not at this point, forever. So the CDC maps the known locations of those elements identified as being at risk in BC. And an element occurrence, or EO, is a standard NatureServe map unit. Again, that allows data to cross these jurisdictional boundaries. And an EO is an area where a species or community is or was present. However, it is not just an observation. An observation might be mapped as an EO if it has a number of criteria met. So it's a reliable observation, it has practical conservation value. And one EO represents a population of an element. So there may be many individual locations associated with one EO depending on the distance that a population might breed or the seed dispersal. And an EO should be a location on the ground that could be managed for, and that is important to the ongoing survival of that critter or plant, and that continues to be important over time. So some examples may include dens or nests or foraging grounds. And I would add here that EOs are important data to consider. However, I always recommend it to be used alongside with other data sets, such as observation, and that's important to fill in data gaps. And 90% of our mapped EOs are available publicly through our websites and web applications. However, some data is secured for various reasons. It's important to know that if you encounter secured data, that it is available to those with a need to know for the most part. There are some exceptions to that, but generally, if it's in your area of interest, then you certainly can access that information. So we have a few web tools for accessing the data. BC Species and Ecosystems Explorer. You can find details about an element, find out its legal designations and conservation status. This is where you'll find the SARA status and other provincial legal designations. You can learn about best management practices and generate lists of what might potentially occur in suitable habitat in your area of interest. And you can use our mapping application, CDC IMAP, which will be renamed EcoAtlas BC soon, to find out what is known to occur or mapped as an EO, as well as that's where you can add the critical habitat data for terrestrial species. There are lots of other useful data sets available through this application as well, including the provincial observation layers. And this application does allow you to export the data to Excel or PDF or shapefile, whatever is most useful for you. And you can also use the BC data catalog to search hundreds of data sets. You'll find good metadata for like what the data is representing and how to use it. And you can also export provincial-wide data sets to KML or shapefile or to your database, or you can connect live to that data via a web map service. You can see that I've highlighted a couple of lines in red, and this is, I always like to remind users to use both applications because you want to generate both a potential list of what might occur in suitable habitat, as well as to guide, that can be used to guide inventory, but also to find out what is known and mapped in your area of interest, so you can manage those known locations. And additionally, we also respond to over 800 custom requests per year. So certainly don't hesitate to reach out. Any of these searches can be completed by myself, or we can work with you to get the data in the best format for you. So this is what BCSEE looks like, and it's our most popular tool for accessing non-spatial information. And I understand you won't necessarily absorb the steps here, but this is to give you an idea of what's available to you, and you can feel free to contact us for any help if needed. So as we work our way down, up at the top, you can do a one-click search to find out all of the red listed or SARA listed elements in the province. You can search by species or community name. You can generate lists based on the groups of elements there, so animals, plants, etc. You can see. You can search by conservation status or legal designation. And in this category, you can see you've got the BC red and blue list, status ranks, global ranks, COSEWIC, and if you expand legal designation, you have the option for, to generate the SARA list, Migratory Bird Conventions Act, etc. Other search options include the habitat search and endemic search. In our next slide, I'll show you what the search by area looks like. So if you click on the search by area, you have options to search by various layers, and I've chosen the natural resource districts one here for an example. And you can specify whether you want to search by the map or by the list. And you can also choose a number of other layers to search by, or you can use the user-defined area of interest to upload a shapefile or draw an area on the map. So this will generate your results for potentially what might occur in your area of interest in suitable habitat. Now, I would add a caveat here right now that we recently switched to a new method of search, and these are right now based on range maps that we are in the process of refining over time. And so you will find an inflated number of results that we're whittling down. Currently, we have contracts to kind of refine that data. So this is an example of search results, and you can see some basic information about each element listed in your results. And note that our tool provides additional information to CDC data. So you will see like the federal designations, other documents that are not CDC produced, but that we serve out. And for more information on each element, you can click on the reports link, and you'll find information on biology and conservation status, and links to best management practices and other related references there. And you can also export all the results here to Excel. So a quick look at CDC IMAP. These are our preloaded CDC layers that you will see. They all are prefixed by species and ecosystems at risk. And you can use the add data BC layers here to add in the critical habitat for terrestrial species. And we can see it's been added there. And using the find tools highlighted here, you can draw an area of interest and find out what's mapped in that area. And once we have results, we can export them to PDF or shapefile or Excel by clicking here. And in this area, there's white bark pine, critical habitat, as well as an occurrence of Lewis's woodpecker. And we can see the details of the occurrence by clicking on the record, and just here's a bit of information there, the summary. And that's what would get exported to Excel or shapefile. So the BC Data Catalog allows you to search for thousands of data layers housed by the province, and you can download the data sets in various formats at a provincial scale or even just in your area of interest. And you can read about the layers, including the critical habitat, the federal critical habitat layer is served through this portal, as well as the CDC species at risk layers, and lots more. And I just wanted to add this slide in because I'm aware that some of you are in Alberta currently. So the Alberta Conservation Information Management System is Alberta's conservation data center, and they're housed within the Resource Stewardship Division in Alberta Environment and Parks. They are a member of NatureServe and NatureServe Canada, and they operate alongside the Fish and Wildlife Information Management System. And I've added a couple of contacts there for you. And also this PowerPoint will be available to you after. And I will be providing a handout as well, or it will be posted on your website, this year website. And this just kind of guides you to the different uses of the tools and some recommendations on other information to add. So that might be helpful after this. And finally, please don't hesitate to reach out with questions. I love to help people get the information they need, so don't hesitate to do that. And I'll also route you in the right direction if you're at the wrong place. Thanks.